Focusing on other areas of your life will make you more productive and creative. I think that people automatically assume like work more, you're gonna make more money. And that's not always how it works. So you're gonna grow more in life by putting more time and energy into this one thing, but that's not always how it works. Like we said earlier, sometimes you have to step back, and that in itself will give you creativity to go further in life. Like Matt said, if you feel like you're kind of hitting a wall and you're not seeing the results that you want, take a step back, take some time off, invest in other areas in your life, whether that be fitness, whether that be family, whether that be trying a new hobby, whether that be, whatever that looks like for you. Invest into other areas in your life, because that in itself might make you more creative.
It's the 3 F's: faith, family, and fitness.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 1% Better Everyday podcast. My name is Jasmine.
My name is Matthew Gone.
And today we're going to be talking about family and business. It is a conversation that we wanted to have with you guys. A couple weeks ago we planned it out, and we really wanted to talk about how we have balance, because we've talked about it before and we kind of briefly touched on the subject, but we want to get into it today. As you guys know, we always begin every episode with giving one of you guys a shout out. So I want to go ahead and shout out MP Consulting Solutions. And she commented on our Instagram, "Cannot wait to see what 2025 brings for you guys." I really appreciate that, because a bunch of you guys have been tuning into our Instagram, and I think it's really been helping, because Matt has been posting more reels on there and you guys seem to really like the content. So please let us know what we can do better for you guys. But we really appreciate the love and support. Like, we have just grown so much in only a year. I mean, we are brand new. We just kind of rebranded our podcast like a year ago. So we're still fairly new, and you guys have just been showing us so much love and support as we talk about, entrepreneurship and just family and life and everything in between that goes on. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So yeah, what do you think the challenges are in having a family and having a business at the same time?
I think it's just keeping everything together consistently, because we don't like to separate it, or not necessarily wanting to. What do people always say? Like, there's a work-life balance, like
harmony.
I don't know what the fuck they be saying, but it's like you honestly need to have it together and figure out for it to coincide together.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, because I feel like I'm kind of used to it, because like I grew up watching my dad have a business, so that was our whole life. Like, our life revolved around our business. Mm-hmm. And so, every time that we had to help out, it was always help out the business, because the business feeds us at home. Or it was always like, go help out at the restaurant because that's what's paying our bills, or go help out here because that's what's feeding you. So I think for me, like, I think it helped because I always grew up around that. But correct, I agree with you. Like, looking back, that is something that I do appreciate, that I feel like I learned from my dad was, how can you get the family involved in the business? Because I think too many times people start a business and they feel like they don't want to share that with their family because they don't want to burden them, or they just don't want to share it for some reason, or they want to keep it hush hush. But I feel like that makes more problems, because then your family doesn't know what you're going through.
Yeah, and then you really want to integrate the people that actually understand it, and that's hard sometimes for business, for your family to understand what you're trying to achieve in business, because they might not have that business mindset. And because they might not have that business mindset, they're not going to share the same aspiration, dreams, or work ethic as you. Like, you can have your sister, your brother, your auntie, your uncle, your dad, or your mom, that's like first line generation of blood. You came from that person, they still don't even know what the fuck you're talking about or going through.
Yeah. And to build off of that, one thing that like we have just learned to appreciate even more, and I just appreciate it so much more as I'm getting older and just having the career that I do, is that when you're an entrepreneur, yes, it's going to be hard, but at the same time, like, if you're constantly hating what you do every single day, then at one point or another, you're just going to get burned out and you're going to quit. And I feel like for me, I've always loved what I love to do. Like, I even think about it sometimes, and I ask myself, like, if I wasn't getting paid, or if I was doing this for free, like, would I still enjoy it? And I do, because I love it. Like, I geek out over, just coming up with messaging or coming up with creative campaigns for my clients, because that brings me so much joy and that brings me so much creativity that I can use, that sometimes it doesn't even feel like a job. And I know we say that over and over, but you really, really have to like do something that brings you passion. And I just know that when I started social media management and when I started doing websites and all this stuff, like I wasn't getting paid $1 for it. Eventually I started getting paid, but at the beginning, I mean, I was barely making any money off of it. So you really do have to love what you do. And
because if you don't, you're gonna bring that miserable feeling that you do at your job home to your family, and your family is supposed to be there to support you within that. And it's hard bringing that frustration and unhappiness to your home because of a work or a job to your family that's supposed to love and support you.
Yeah. Are you a service-based entrepreneur that provides some kind of service, but you don't know how to create content in order to convert someone from following you into a paying client? I'm going to tell you exactly what to post in order to start generating more leads, attract high-paying clients, and get more DMs than you can possibly answer. I will help you how to find your niche, how to find your target audience, and craft offers that will attract top buyers every time you go to make a post. Text me content to 513-516-7332 to learn more on how you can get mentored by me for only $99 a month. Yeah, that's so true. And like I said, even in entrepreneurship, it's always going to be hard. It's always going to be challenging, but there's always going to be work to do. Like that was something that Matt always has to ground me on, is that I'm super ambitious, and like when I want something and when I'm focused, like I'm super, super focused. And sometimes it is hard for me to take a break, or sometimes it is hard for me to take a step back because I feel like I'm always just overwhelmed or behind. But then, you know, Matt's always there to remind me like, hey, you know, sometimes you need to take a break. Sometimes you need to step away so that way you can come and look at it with the fresh eyes. And that's not to say that you should, you know, just focus on your job entirely, but that's to say, like, when you love what you do, like I said, sometimes it doesn't even feel like a job, where yes, it might be stressful, but when you tell your family, or when you at least when you bring your family along with you, they're going to be there to support you, or just give you perspectives that maybe you don't see along the journey. Because that's something that me and Matt always talk about, is like, even with you, I feel like sometimes you share with me, like, you don't feel like you're as skilled as you are. But from my perspective, I'm like, you know, he has so much knowledge that I don't know, or he has so many skills that I'm like, if you try to explain them to me, I would barely understand 1% of it. But I guess with that, like, what boundaries have you learned to set with family, with managing family and business?
Well, this is the perfect segue into that, because we can't always expect our family to be supportive. And when we don't get support from our family, we get disappointed because they don't understand or they don't support us. And being a successful business owner, you gotta let go of the feeling of wanting support from your family and friends, because it may not happen. Like, you might not get support from nobody, but
Yeah.
you can be successful at it. But you still, again, this is the reason why we're bringing up this topic or this conversation dealing with family and business, because you can't let your feelings for your family affect the way you want to do business.
Yeah, that's so true. I think when it comes to your family, it can be kind of harder to set boundaries, but you know, just because people are so emotionally driven around their families. But one thing that, you know, Matt kind of said was that you have to learn how to put boundaries from the beginning. It doesn't matter, you know, if they're your mom, if they're your dad, if they're your brother or your sister, you have to learn how to put boundaries, because if you don't put boundaries with your family, eventually it's gonna start spilling over into a lot of areas in your life. Or maybe you're already doing it and you just don't pay attention. But I know for me, a lot of my struggles with setting boundaries with my family was because I didn't know how to set boundaries within myself, or just in general at all. So that's really where it was stemming from. So that's really something I had to learn with navigating business and life, where I think we talked about it on another call, where, you know, time blocking your day is going to help you. For example, I have a big family, and so if I let my family call me whenever they wanted to, I would be on the phone for about 3 hours a day.
All day.
Every day. And so that was a huge boundary that I had to set, where, you can only call me during these times, or like if it's an emergency, if we need to talk, like, hey, we can talk, but you got max 15, 20 minutes. And again, everybody's boundaries look different, but you just have to learn and find what works for you. Because that's really going to help you, again, just be super clear about what is it that you need in that season, and how can other people make sure that they're respecting your boundaries without you guys always getting into conflict. Because I think that, especially with family, like this is just something I noticed coming from like, a Hispanic family, Latina, but everything always turns into a conflict. And so that's something that I've had to teach even my family along the way. Like, this does not mean that I think you're a bad person, or this doesn't mean that I have something against you, or, that you did something to hurt me. It just means that these are my boundaries and you have to respect them at this moment. And I think that, that's a whole conversation in itself, but you have to sometimes learn how to do that with your family, or just have that conversation with them, like, hey, this doesn't mean that, I have something against you. It just means that in this season, I have to learn how to prioritize my time in this way.
Yeah, and even if you explain it, you still can't expect people to understand. Like, you can assume, but that's only going to get you so far when you're expecting people to really get why you blocking their phone calls, or why you not texting them back, or why you not responding back to their emails, or why you not going to that family gathering on Saturday, or why you didn't go to that birthday party on Sunday. Like, it's certain things. Again, we separating the business from the family, but also trying to bring it together. Is people got to understand when we need our own time to get stuff done for our business, it might not always be the best time that it is during the family.
Yeah. And I wanted to add off of that. I think that the reason why a lot of people people please, and this is just like a common thing that I've noticed, is that nobody wants to hurt each other's feelings. Like, everybody wants to kind of walk on eggshells and make sure that they're just not hurting anybody else. And sometimes no response is a response. Like, sometimes no response is your boundary. So sometimes you don't know anybody an explanation. Like, sometimes maybe you just need to deal with stuff, and it means that you don't communicate anything to anybody, and that's just your boundary, and that's it. And I think that, with age or just with time, you kind of learn to see what works for you. Because again, there's just sometimes where, like Matt said, I don't have the time to explain this to a family member. I don't have the time to explain this to somebody, because then they're going to come up with 20 other questions. They're going to come up with 20 other topics that they're going to try to drive you, or they're going to try to convince you, or they're going to try to question, why. And sometimes you just don't need to explain yourself.
Yeah, and that time that they answering all those questions, or you answering them, you could be doing something for your business.
Yeah. And the reason I brought up people pleasing is because I think that when you don't do something that somebody else wants, you automatically think like, oh, you're a bad person, or you're hurting somebody else. And you almost have to rewire your brain and unlearn that, because again, this is just a common thing that I've found with a lot of people, not just, 2 or 3, but a lot of people always say like, their people pleasing tendencies comes because they don't want to hurt anybody, or they don't want to hurt people's feelings, or the way that they're perceived in other people's minds. And that was something that I had to grow out of, is that even though I never really cared about people's opinions, I did care a little bit about how I was perceived in their mind. And that was something that I had to unlearn, because I'm like, why do I care about how they perceive me when we don't even have the same goals, or when we don't even
share the same
have the same vision in this season?
Yeah.
And so that was something that I had to learn. Like, everybody's journey is different, everybody's chapter is different, and whatever it looks like to you, that's it. It's your life. At the end of the day, you can do whatever you want in your life. You can make your own rules to your life, because you only get one life. So just keep that in mind, is that, for example, some people don't celebrate holidays. Like, that's a huge thing with people from different religious backgrounds. But again, sometimes we forget, because we're in our own little world, that we think that everybody has to do things the way that we do. And then that's just not how life works. But
yeah. If you do happen to have a family member that's business oriented and you trust them, that's probably your best business partner. Mm-hmm. Is to have family, because it's super easy to be integrated within that dynamic in that relationship, because 1, you already trust that person, and then 2, that person understands you from before the business. They knew you before you started the business, so that person probably understands you better, and that's going to be a better business partner than somebody that you just randomly met. Or sometimes it isn't, but in a positive way, in the best case scenario, definitely doing family with business and family is really good. Like the one thing I always look at, the prime example is the Kardashians. Like I love, from an outside looking in, I don't know what's going on within their business. I don't know the type of conversations but they have, but I just know I love seeing that family dynamic and they all being proud business owners and the stuff that they're accomplishing within their family.
Yeah, and I just want to build off of that. You also have to trust the person. You have to know that they are gonna have the same morals and values as you. So if you have family members that obviously align with you in that way and you trust them completely, then I would say go for it. But you also want to be careful with family because sometimes there can be blurred lines, or you just assume that something is one way or they assume that something is another way. And when it comes to money, for some reason, money just breaks relationships. I've seen it firsthand with family members, and money is a touchy subject. So one thing that I learned when I was younger, and I just want to mention it, is I don't know where I heard this. I think I got this from my dad, but it was like never lend money if you don't expect to never get it back, if that makes sense. Like never lend out money if you're always going to be like waiting to get it back.
If you're expecting to get it back, don't lend it out.
Because you're not. And luckily, like I don't want to say luckily, but I've had really good just friends and family around me that whenever we lend money from each other, I always get it back. I never expect to get it back, but I always get it back because of the trust that I have in these friends and family. My cousin's a big example of that. But I bring that up because when it comes to money, money is a touchy subject. So you just want to make sure that you fully trust the person. And like Matt said, I think it's like a blessing when you have family that are entrepreneurs because they get it and they understand the power of investing. And that's why I say money is a touchy subject, because if your family or people around you that are entrepreneurship don't understand the power of investing and how money is a tool and resource, that's really, really where you're just going to start butting heads. But I definitely think it's a blessing to be able to do business with your family, because I think that just coming from an entrepreneur standpoint, it is really hard, like you said, sometimes trying to explain things to your family that work a 9-to-5 or that kind of just clock in and clock out, and they don't understand how entrepreneurship is so much more than that. You have to, do your own expenses. You have to do your own taxes. You have to do your own marketing. You have to do your own videography. You have to do your own branding. Like there's so many components to a business that people don't understand why you're always working on your business. But yeah, I guess with that, we wanted to talk about like what are some strategies for finding balance, and I kind of already mentioned one, but it was time blocking your day. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that really got us planning and time blocking. Like,
Matt, I need your help growing my social media audience.
All right, guys, if you need help growing your social media audience, make sure you text 602-390-7002. Once again, it's 602-390-7002. Doing family trips, doing date nights.
Like scheduling all that, yeah.
Like that's super duper important. At least having the idea or the concept out in the air between you and your family on stuff that y'all want to do. Like I said, that way when you strategize everything, you're still able to get all the things that you want to get done accomplished. Like you might be 50% on the business and you might be doing 30% with your main family, and the other, what am I missing? 20% you doing something, you doing sports and athletic time. Like I'm pretty sure 100% of my day, 10%, 100% of my week or month, 10% is in my fitness. So the other 90%, I just got to split it up, but I got to make sure I keep it consistent with spending time with family and working on business.
Yeah, and that's so important because, like I said, I think that sometimes we can become one-dimensional or kind of just focus on one area in our life, and you kind of tend to notice what are those buckets for you. Like I said, for me, a huge bucket that I spend a majority of my time in was my education in my career, because obviously that was like my way out of poverty. Like, for me, it was almost stressed every single day in my household, go get an education, go get this, because that's going to get you out of poverty, which is not always the case. But again, you usually have like a big bucket that you're spending a lot of time and energy on. So figure out what that is for you And then from there, figure out, is it a healthy work balance? Is it a healthy balance that you enjoy? If not, like where are other areas that you can spend more time into? And I'm so glad that Matt mentioned that, because even like those family trips or those family date nights, if you don't schedule them, they will never happen. And so that's one thing that I'm so glad that he does, is that he always, caves out or just blocks out time, like every quarter, every week, every month. And he's like, this is family time, this is this. And that's a really good tip. But and with that, what are some generational wealth and business legacy tips that you would give somebody?
Education on financial literacy. I think that's the biggest thing that I've ran across, because growing up, money was not a topic of conversation. I just knew, like, when I was growing up, I was the oldest out of 5 kids, so I was doing all the store runs when my mom couldn't. So I knew how much was on the EBT card. Like, I knew how much to spend. I knew how much groceries I can get. So in a sense, I was kind of like forced into like budgeting and stuff like that. Like, I knew I was in charge of getting snacks for the kids, and I knew I had this much money, and I was only able to get this amount of shit back. So when I learned my financial literacy through the bank, I learned how people kept their money and grew their money. So education is the #1 thing for me.
That's a really good tip. Yeah, I was gonna say for me, it would be education through financial literacy. I definitely think that's the #1 thing that I wish I would have learned more when I was younger. And then 2 is just learning new skills, because I feel like nobody ever really talks about that, or nobody never really.
Yeah, but money making skills, not just any skill.
Yes, that is so important.
Because you can learn.
That is
you
so,
can learn
so
so many different skills. Unfortunately,
that is so important. Definitely learn high earning, paying skills.
Yeah.
High earning, paying skills, because that was one thing that I wish I would have learned. And
well, you did learn.
Well, I don't want to say luckily, because I worked my ass off, but luckily I feel like I did end up in a high paying skill, which is marketing, because not a lot of people understand and grasp that concept. So whatever that looks like for you, research, high paying skills, and then learn a couple of those. For example, Matt, you kind of you did go to college for graphic design, but even then there was a lot of things that you were always teaching yourself. So it just goes to show, like, when you really want to learn something, you find a way, whether you go to college, whether you look up on YouTube, whether you read books. Education is your best friend. So whether that be learning financial literacy tips, or whether that be learning a high paying skill, education for me has really, really been the way out. Like, even in my younger days, or even like in college, like I really feel like just educating myself has helped me in so many ways that paid me back. But
yeah, no, back to your point, that's another thing that I would do, because I have high paying skills. I have multiple sets of skills that land me high paying jobs. So that is super duper important. And not only that, that's something you can teach other people. Mm-hmm. Like being a coach, like
learning how to diversify your streams of income.
That's another one up there. There's at least 5 ones that you should absolutely take on. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because whenever you learn one skill, you can always multiply that into 5 or 10, like Matt said. So, But hot topic of the week was, what do you guys do to balance starting, growing a business and life? So someone asked, hey guys,
same thing we already said.
I work with service business clients and help them to grow through marketing. What I do isn't important for this question though, so enough about that. I am curious about how folks here are balancing work and life as they grow their business. Work can be a grind, but overall I enjoy the challenge and how much I am working. With that said, I am concerned whether it's okay for me to be all consumed with this business. I feel like I am paying less and less attention to other things in life, like family and friends. I'm still in the growth phase of my business, so I assume that this is normal for a bit of time. But for how long? Was there a situation where you realized, I need to check and invest in other areas of my life? How do I turn my brain off so that I'm not always thinking about my business?
Well, the second part
That's a good question,
ending of that question was, when did I notice it was time to focus in other areas? When I noticed it was time to focus in other areas is when I wanted to grow and what I was doing in my life didn't create growth. So then when I noticed I wasn't growing, I looked around the other areas around my life that I wasn't focusing on, or at least putting a small percentage into. And then that's when I figured out, I was like, oh shit, that's what I need to put in. Like we were saying earlier, put in 5% here, put in 10% here, put in 20% here, and keep the percentages consistent. So basically, I already answered the question. It's just time blocking.
Yeah, I like the way Matt explained that. So I don't think people realize how much focusing on other areas of your life will make you more productive and creative. I think that people automatically assume like work more, you're gonna make more money. And that's not always how it works. So you're gonna grow more in life by putting more time and energy into this one thing, but that's not always how it works. Like we said earlier, sometimes you have to step back, and that in itself will give you creativity to go further in life. So like Matt said, if you feel like you're kind of hitting a wall and you're not seeing the results that you want, take a step back, take some time off, invest in other areas in your life, whether that be fitness, whether that be family, whether that be trying a new hobby, whether that be, whatever that looks like for you. Invest into other areas of your life, because that in itself might make you more creative.
It's the 3 F's: faith, family, and fitness.
Yeah. Like for example, like when you got me into golf, I feel like Matt started golf, like 6 months ago?
It's been a year.
Almost a year.
No, it's been more than a year, because I started, Josh took me golfing December 2023. So it's been over a year.
Yeah, so him starting a new hobby.
Skill.
I was going to say,
that's a skill. Golfing is a skill.
Technically you learned a skill. But you realizing, hey, like I need to invest more energy into other buckets, and then you starting golf,
it opened up.
That was like the domino effect, because then he made me realize like, oh, okay, like maybe I need to focus on new things. And I don't know why, but that was like the spark to even like my fitness journey, and just me starting other things, and then me running like a 5K. And it just goes to show that you just never know how one little thing might create a domino effect, or how it might impact your life. So I say that to say, like, him starting a new hobby or skill impacted me and my creativity, because now we're making content about golf. Like who would have ever known that we were going to make content about golf? So it just goes to show, like, sometimes it might give you a new hobby, sometimes it might give you like a new creative endeavor, and you just never know where it might lead you. And sometimes you really do have to open yourself up to new experiences and just new things in life.
More importantly, one thing that wasn't stated is that I learned a top 1% in the world skill, which allowed me to be around top 1% people. Like, we only meet rich. It's got to be only multimillionaires there, easily. And the conversations that I have, and the people that I'm starting to know and learn around that area, that we already live in a multi-million dollar area as it is now. And when you golf, you only have a specific type of person that goes there. So that not only did I learn a high skill, but a high value skill, but that high value skill is going to allow me to network with high value people.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think we're going to end it there, so that way we can do a part 2 on this topic, because that's such a good topic that we can dive into. But sometimes you have to push yourself to do new things and hard things and uncomfortable things that you never thought you would do in your life. For example, I never thought that I was going to do a 5K in my life, and I did a 5K last year. Now I want to challenge myself to do a half marathon. And at one point I was like, I'm never going to do a half marathon, but now I'm challenging myself, because again, there was something in my journey where it just was the domino effect to something else. And also something Matt said that was really important is that the environments that you place yourself around is the type of people that you're going to attract. So if you're always, just doing these things where you're not surrounding yourself around maybe the people that you want to meet, or don't even think about it like as a transactional thing, but if you're not surrounding yourself around new things that you can learn from, you're not going to meet those people. So anyways, we're going to leave it there, and I think we're going to do a part 2 on that, because that's a whole nother conversation that we can start. But let us know down below, what other topics do you guys want to see next? Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, because our podcast is just growing. Don't forget to listen to us on Anchor. If you guys cannot watch us on YouTube, please listen to us on Anchor, so that way we can post more episodes on there for you. But again, my name is Jasmine.
My name is Matthew Cohn.
And we are the 1% Better Everyday podcast, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye, you guys.